but it affects the way the body reacts, responds, makes choices. It affects our stress responses. It affects our brain waves. It affects all sorts of things in the body. Imagine there were studies that have been done with elite athletes to show that when their internal self-talk is especially powerful, I don't have a slide presentation, but I have it already. Can I just go ahead? I only have 15 minutes, okay? When the self-talk is especially powerful, it has been proven that these athletes act better under stressful situations. They show up better when they're convinced of what they say. Even in terms of cortisol responses in the body, they have done tests where when people dial into their value systems before an especially stressful situation, they have found that them articulating who they are, I am this, I'm an overcomer, I can do this, as opposed to, I am a failure, this is not going to go well for me, it always goes bad. They have found that their cortisol levels are actually lower throughout the stressful situations. So yes, our words do affect our reality. And of course, this is Women of Influence, and we're talking about the power of words. And I think even as women, there's a special way that we are able, whether you have children or not, it doesn't even matter. I think it's a female thing. That ability to think up something, create it, incubate it, and bear fruit. Think of something, create it in your mind, incubate it right there, and nurture it through that process of bearing fruit. I want to give you two examples from my life, and the second one is especially surprising because both of my examples are sitting here today. We'll talk about that. But I want to take you back, all the way back, to March 2020. Remember what happened then? Yeah. It was the pandemic, right? I was working in an office at the University of Alberta, mid-level, professional, hated my job. And on March 19, 2020, they said go home to work. And I took my extra keyboard, I took my mouse, and like everybody else, I exited the workplace not knowing that it would be 2 years before we even went back in. And for an introvert like me, I know all hell was breaking loose, but for somebody like me, this was an opportunity. When I realized that the work that I had to do for the university entailed me getting up from my bed, going down into the basement, doing the people's work, and still having time for my own self, I got to work. But that getting to work meant I started to create a reality for myself, which was what I wanted. I began to design life. I began to walk my basement and say this, I'm not going back to the office. I'm not going back to the office. I'm not going back to the office. What does that even mean? It meant I began to incubate those words and to think, if this is going to be the reality that I want, what do I have to do now? How does somebody who does not work in an office act, behave, be? And I got to work to the point where I even began to write my book. I'm not going back to the office. It's coming out later this year. And I began to write that book as if I had already left. You guys, that is the power of words. I began to write that book already imagining me having the time and space to be able to drop my kids on the morning and pick them up without having to run back to the office. I began to see myself being able to run on my treadmill at 10 in the morning because that was when I was available. I began to see myself working when I was most productive, and it definitely was not the 9 to 5. It's never the 9 to 5. You know when I work best? 1 o'clock in the morning to about 6 or 7. I can do damage at that time, right? But I never had that privilege because the office hours always dictated when I had to work. And so I began in those 2 years, 2020 to 2022, to craft around what I wanted, which was to work from home. I'm very introverted, don't mind all of this, I'm very introverted. And to be able to coach, I got my certification, I began to write books again, I began to speak again, I began to go out there as the person I imagined myself to be. And that's the first power of words, that they can help you to look forward into the future and pull it back to where you are, to work in a sense from your end towards the end, just thinking about how do I become that person who I foresee in the future. And I am here today. I'm here. I have not gone back to the office. I am never going back to the office. And more than that is that I found the thing that I love to do. And that was part of it. To move from a job that was basically painful to one where I love what I do. I love coaching people. I love speaking. I love coaching speakers. And that's what I wanted to do. And I spent all of this time incubating the words. I'm not going back to the office, and finding a way to make that possible. The second thing that I want to speak about is this. And the second way that words have influenced my life. It's a little more vulnerable. Are you ready? Right. Are you ready? Are you here with me? Okay. So, I've never really been, in the past, I wasn't really the person who I found, inspired loyalty. Let's put it that way. I've had a couple rough relationships, friendships, that kind of thing. Anybody here can attest to that? Anybody else? Yeah, I know, right? And here's the thing about words. If we are not careful, especially as women with that power to incubate things, if you're not careful, you will look at your reality and think it's your truth and it's your existence. You will look at the proof of what is happening in your life and take it to be your identity. So all this time I was saying, oh, I don't inspire loyalty. Yeah, I'm a friend, but I don't inspire friendship. But no, I'm just not. I will be a friend. If I'm in your corner, I am. But I don't inspire friendship. And, well, I'm a believer, and so I always go to the good book for a lot of identity stuff, okay? And one time, I was reading in 1 Samuel the story of David and Jonathan. Anybody knows that story? It says in that chapter, listen to this, this is not just biblical, you guys, this has import for life. It says that Jonathan heard David speak, and the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. Has there ever been anybody who has simply slipped through the cracks, who goes way past all of your barriers, and they just enter your heart and settle there like sand? Anybody? Yeah. And you have no idea why that person leapt out at you and you at them? Has that ever happened? Well, it happens romantically too. No, it absolutely does, right? And that happened to me. And it was when I was preparing for this speech, I realized that I read this and I wanted it. I am a big child before my father. I see things and I want them, right? And you know what? I was like, I want this. I don't care what I've experienced, the breakups, the lack of loyalty. I want this. I want my Jonathans. I want my Davids. And I began to pray that prayer almost 2 years ago. And then I walked into Womaniship. July 2023. I walk into Womaniship and I hear this woman who is so authentic. Okay? Somebody invited me. I walked into Womaniship. And I hear this woman who's so authentic, so herself, so everything. And I'm like, okay, that's my person. That's her over there. That's her over there. I've been praying for her. I've been praying for somebody like this. She didn't even know that. She didn't even know that. This is the first time hearing that story. That's my person. Wow. I walked in and I saw my David. And I'm her Jonathan. But here's the thing about words. Words turn around. Words have like 360 import. You know who else walked into my life? A Jonathan. She's sitting in the back right there. She's filming me right now and I didn't even ask her to. About a year ago, it's about a year, right, Naya? Yeah. Naya called me on the phone. I had a program. She's actually from my country and we didn't even know. So it doesn't mean that everybody from a small island knows each other. Okay, everybody? I didn't know her. And she she walked into my life and we knit. Souls just knit. And what am I saying to you is that you might not be the person who into the Bible or whatever, but find words for the things that you want in your life. If you're experiencing loss or lack in any area, it is not supposed to just be the thing that you accept. Find a thing, find a thought, find a word that can help you to change that reality. Because this one has been most significant for me because it was where I lacked the most. I found my David and I found my Jonathan. So my question to you is, how does this even work? One of the books that I read all the time, every single day, I listened to it this morning, is Think and Grow Rich. And there's a chapter in that book called Auto-Suggestion that speaks about taking your words specifically and saying them over and over again. Specifically because you train your brain to go down a single address. And I've done that in every area in my life that I want results, and it has worked. And so to end it all, speak life. Speak life doesn't mean you look at what's happening for you and you be like, okay, this is what it is. No, you are bigger and greater than that. What do you want? Find the words that address it, that frame it, that make your life what you want, and go there. And that's one way that women can become incubators, that you brood over it, that you see it, that you envision it, and then it becomes your reality for yourself and for those around you. So I hope this helps. Go find your word, incubate it, brood over it, and bear fruit. Thank you.